Right, so here's the God of Pythium. We've got some reinvigoration, magic resistance, finesse, undying, poison resistance, unaging, some HP. So this is clearly basically a mage bless. Pythium relies a lot on their mages and their communions and wants to do astral paths to destroy people's soul. So having finesse, reinvigoration, unaging because their old mages are old, and HP I assume to help their regen com. Once you get to 11 HP, you start regenerating 2 a turn instead of 1 a turn, so that's why they've taken 3 health to get their 8 HP vessels to 11 HP. Pretty reasonable in terms of Bless, I would say. Tries to really go all in on their mages. Nothing here I would say is odd, except maybe the Undying. I would say that could be just a break into death a little bit. What do you think?
I hate this god more than any other god in the game, I think. And let's talk about why. So it's a win more god, right? It's making the mages marginally better at doing their thing, which is sort of, standing in the back in a big calm and chucking out spells. And the problem I see with this bless, like Arcane Finesse, okay, sure, it's fun to have +1 pen, but that's probably not going to change the outcome of a battle. This bless doesn't stop people from firestorming the mages or foul vapors, earthquake, or winds of death, all manner of things.
I will note it does stop the foul vapors, at least a little bit.
Oh, you're right. Minor poison resistance. I'm sure, but it doesn't add any new strategies into Pythium's toolkit. If you walk up against Pythium, he's going to show up with a big mage com.
So what you're telling me is you're advocating now for all resist Rainbow Pythium to stop Firestorm.
I don't know if I would go that far, because obviously then you're paying a lot for stuff like shock resisting your mages is very rarely relevant. On something like Pythium, I'd rather see an Awake. I'd rather see like a Titan that you can kit out with as an SC, and he can go out and your opponent won't know whether he's going to face a 6-item SC or this sort of strong Pythium mage comp. And I think you could pick up things like Unaging or Reinvig, Arcane Finesse, even if you choose the right god.
Yeah, so what Jamadon is beating around the bush here is that Pythium has access to the best god in Dominions Enhanced, which is the Peacock Angel. And the Peacock Angel has nature to get that Unaging. And can also throw in Poison Resist if you want. Right. And it's very powerful.
Yeah, and so I've played with the Peacock Angel, and I agree that it's probably the best god in Enhanced. Just the power of having it's an air, nature, water Titan that's flying and has a lot of abilities that sort of stack layers of defense and eye vengeance and other things that support defense on it. So the thing about the Peacock Angel is you can have it on a lab. It's sitting there, and just by having it on a lab, you are threatening to sort of, for any army in range of the airdrop, the Cloud Trapeze, suddenly a 6-item angel drops on you with all kinds of layered defenses and the ability to cast foul vapors. That really makes it hard to sort of invade a nation with that angel, because if you send in any army that's not like a doom stack, that angel can probably adjust its gear and then drop on it. Okay, so the problem here is that, in my view, Pythium has traded off short-term power to get a little bit of long-term power. But actually, if he had taken the Peacock Angel or something similar, there are other good angels, he could have had short-term power and medium to long-term power, because he would have had that 6-item angel list.
Well, let's just hope Pythium can make Harbingers work and do you proud for angel-based combat.
Yes.
All right, so next up is Tartary. Tartary, the only mod nation to be making an appearance this game. Nobody knows what it does. They're like horses or something. I certainly don't know what it does. Jamadon tells me he knows what it does.
You can think of it as, it looks like Mongolians. You can think of it as playing more like Calum. They've got high mobility troops that can consolidate into sort of a strategy of, all poking with arrows and then suddenly rushing in with lances, much the way that raiding birds can consolidate into sort of a massive airdrop onto people. And they've got similar kinds of mages, the strongest being air, some ability to calm that air. And these guys have also got access to nature and death. So I envision the basic strategy of Tartary as being, throw up some skeletons or swarm bugs in front and air magic backing that up with horse archers shooting some arrows if needed and charging it.
Well, I look forward to it. The only time I saw Tartar in a game, they read headlong with bows and lances into a army of long dead of Ermors and got absolutely wrecked. Anyway, here's their god.
Nation would have trouble against them.
So this god is actually slightly incorrect. We've got a bit of a scales adjustment. So the god took, I think, 1 or 2 less Dominion point, but in exchange took an order of production and also a misfortune. But what's important is we've got Thunder Weapons and 7 Undying on this 7/7 Ronald the Plague Idol. I don't know a lot about this. Is this going to be for archers? Is this going to be for summons? Is this going to be for the recruitables? Like, what's going on here with Tartary?
Yeah, so I think this is an example. You know, some gods and dominions are really strong because the god itself is good. Peacock Angel, you know, that toad that eats people, the lizard that eats people, thrice horned boar, etc. This god is I think a very strong god on Tartary just because it synergizes so well with a variety of Tartary sacred. First of all, Tartary's got sort of the standard very overpriced in my opinion sacred horse archers. You know, they're using that thunder weapons bless on both the arrows and the final sort of attack and hoof attack.
Yeah, so I see here they've got a 65 gold, 15 protection reindeer rider, it seems. They've got a lance, 2 attacks, and a bow.
Mm-hmm.
I would say with 16 defense and 15 protection, though, that's not worth 65 gold on a 12 hit point unit.
Yeah, it's not. It does not seem like a strong unit. You know, you couldn't possibly justify much, if any, of a bless for that unit. But you know, the beauty of Tartary is that sort of you have 2 categories of summons, that sacred summons that can also use this. One would be the ancestor spirits, just like Tianchi. Those guys really, this is pretty much the perfect bless for those. You know, they go from 1 hit point to 15 hit points with that Undying. And instead of their attacks sort of uselessly paralyzing, now they can stun and do damage with Thunder Weapon. So they go from an annoyance to like actually semi-tanky because they're ethereal and hard hitting and stunning with their weapons. But I think even the more important piece than that for Tartary is that Tartary can summon undead horse archers, and they scale based on the death level of the summoner. So I think what Gukov is hoping to do with this Tartary god is, you know, when it wakes up, which will be kind of soon because it's dormant, that god can start summoning sacred undead horse archers, which are sitting at, you know, a clean plus 14 hit points because they're undead. And they've got, you know, thunder weapons on the arrows and thunder weapons when they charge in.
All right, so last nation we need to talk about is Archocephali, and here is their god. Rhodes called the Bronze Colossus. So we have got the Colossus of Rhodes here. Kind of odd unit, so this is basically a fully slotted humanoid unit, except it has the stats of a monolith. So it's got innate caster, it's got 25 protection, it's size 6, it's got monolith level of hit points, it's mindless, actually, unlike monolith, so it is immune to a lot of things. It has all the resistances, shock, fire, frost, poison, and also can go underwater and is resistant to all damage. What is this god's weakness, you may ask? Does it cost 400 points? Well, no, the thing is this god must be taken at least dormant. And actually does cost a great deal of points. So this is why, even on a dormant god with basically no bless, Arco has needed to take some negative scales. Yeah, Gemini, do you have any particular thoughts on this god? It seems kind of just really strong thing that's going to be hard to kill.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts a lot to sort of take an SC that's dormant, right? Because you know, you'd think a normal SC, you could take a Titan that would be almost as good and then use it to get a great expansion. That said, you know, once this thing does wake up, it'll be very strong. It'll be very difficult to counter this short of Shatter and then maybe a few specialized items.
None of the standard armor-negating stuff works on it because it's lifeless. That would be blood stuff plus drain life from death. None of the AN stuff from Thunder, Air, and Frost work on it because it has Frost resist and all those things. Hitting it with a really big thing is going to be hard because it has resists as well as it's probably going to be packing upwards of 35 protection with full gear. So yeah, outside of using Shatter or having some really, you know, specific counters, I think anti-thugs are the only way to take this down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I think that's what Arco is going for. we talked about how a Peacock Angel would have given Pythium an alternate strategy, and so enemies would have had to play around. Well, this god was going to do the same thing for Arco.
Yep.
People will have to play around the fact that they've got to build an army that can beat Arco's mages, but they also have to build an army that can survive, this thing airdropping onto them. And it's going to be extremely hard to do that because almost nothing counters this god.
Yeah.
As long as Arco uses it strategically and doesn't just fling it in willy-nilly, so such that it might step on a doom stack and eventually just get beaten to death, it'll be a really powerful tool in Quiver.
So there are actually some other interesting things with this god. So the standard counter to golems, for example, which have similar stuff. They have resistance to everything, or it's very easy to get them resistance to everything, and they have magic phase movement, and they're mindless, and they have a bunch of health, and you can get the protection really high, is you turn timer them. Turn time them by shooting skeletons at them forever, right? Well, this god has innate spellcasting, and it has Air 4. What that means is this god is going to cast Shockwave every round. So it is going to be very hard to make enough skeletons to make this thing stand still.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, you could auto-Zerk this god, and I think it still casts Shockwave every round. I'm not actually sure about that. I'm not sure do Berserked innates do. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out from Arco. It can't get triggered during battle, but if the item automatically triggers Berserk, then it will start off the battle of Berserk.
But yeah, this is gonna be a tough god to tangle with. All right, I think that's this for this turn. And let's see what happens next turn.